Hello friends, welcome to this video. I'm hyped for this one. I think it's gonna be fun. But before we start, I do have a disclaimer that this video depicts a character that is manipulative but has kind of a sympathetic backstory. And I wanted to say for all the impressionable youngsters out there, like the little wormlings, if someone is being manipulative, even if they have a sympathetic backstory, like they're doing it out of fear or because they love you so much, that is still wrong, and you should not interact with that person until they get help. Anyway, I think you guys can tell that I like writing villains and I like writing sympathetic villains, but I just wanted to make sure that it comes across that even though this character has somewhat of a sympathetic backstory, his actions are still unacceptable. So, yeah, here we go. That was a bit of an ominous setup, but I feel like it fits. Here we are, Tribe Gen Part 9, and today we're talking about Vana's mate, the Gyrewing consort and advisor to the queen, and his name is Selenite. And because it'll come back later, that's like another word for moonstone. So, if you don't know what the Tribe Gen series is or why I'm talking about this story, you probably go watch like the first video in the series. If you need a refresher, which I feel like I kind of do, basically, Vanadanite is the queen of the Gyrewings who are at war with the Scorchwings, and we have Vana set up as kind of this character that gets manipulated into making some rash decisions, some war beginning decisions, and the advisor that does this is her mate and the father of her eggs. Selenite has kind of convinced Vana that this is what they have to do to save their children because Gyrewing eggs need metal for the eggshells. In addition, Gyrewings need metal for their claws, teeth, horns, and bones, and the Scorchwings have metal. All right, I think that's a good little summary. Now, while I do like doing like sympathetic villain characters or complicated characters, I haven't had much experience with outright manipulative characters, and I think that made him pretty interesting to make. But also, I think that I could definitely use constructive feedback. So many people gave a lot of really good ideas, but one of the first ones that I really took a lot of inspiration from was this comment by Lumiana. I'm not sure if that's how you say your name. I hope I did it okay. Anyway, I definitely did use a lot of your ideas for this, so thank you very much. All right, so Selenite is, as we've kind of already discussed, a very cunning dragon. I wrote in my little notes here, cunning to the extreme. Very, very smart and ambitious. One thing that I really liked that Lumiana came up with was the idea that he is the son of a distinguished warrior, a general even, a legendary duelist, and head of the Queen's Guard. And yet, Selenite isn't really much of a fighter. And this like discrepancy or mismatch between father and son is emphasized by the fact that the Gyrewing culture in and of itself is very much warrior-centric. In my mind, Selenite has to deal with his father being perpetually disappointed in him as a dragonette. He has a chip on his shoulder, needs to prove his father wrong. If you wanted an example of daddy issues, this is him. He has this war in his brain of like, I desperately want to be free of you, but at the same time, I need to please you. So that's fun. Naturally, this leads to a pretty low self-esteem, but like underneath a shell. So I also wrote down haughty as hell, and just angry and difficult to be friends with. And like he's kind of always expecting backhanded compliments, like he doesn't expect dragons to genuinely like him because he doesn't really have that at home, if that makes sense. So his first instinct is like, F you, So all of these things combined, he doesn't have a lot of friends, and it is hard to be friends with him. Basically, everyone hates him, including Vanna, when they go to school together. There you go, it ties in. So, Vanna and Selenite go to school together, and they have a history of being rivals. Selenite rubs his intelligence in her face. I think he especially gets, like, extra arrogant around her because she is everything his father wants in a dragonette, and that makes him feel bad about himself and jealous, so he's mean to her. Anyway, Vanna, plays into it. She rubs her fighting skills in his face, and they are just, rivals, nemesis, if you will. But one day, Vanna has a punishment she has to do for getting her little group of friends to run off and go scavenger hunting instead of attending school. And this punishment is that she has to train Selenite to fight. And she is like jaw dropped. What? Like, you can't do this? For how long? And the headmaster of the school is like shrugging until he can fight. So now we have these two rivals like beating each other up after school. And at first, Vanna just outright beats him so easily. She tries to get it over as quick as possible so she can just go home. But this made him really furious, and so one day he just tricks her into almost losing, using some underhanded tactic like, I don't know, setting up a trap in the arena before she gets there or something. And at first she is really mad. She's like, that's not fair, but he keeps doing it, and over time she starts kind of being impressed by his ingenuity despite herself. Maybe he's not worthless in a fight, he's just different. He uses his cunning, his tricks. And so one day she's just like, what the heck? Let's be friends. And he's aghast. Like, what are you talking about? Again, this is one of those scenes that I can really see in my head. And she flashes this mischievous smile, and she's like, with your brains and my fighting skills, we'd be unstoppable, Moony. Because remember, Vanna is very charismatic and also irreverent, so she would be the kind of friend to give you a weird nickname. So there you go. I think it's really funny for him to have a silly nickname, because I drew him very much like this intimidating villain type expression, but to Vanna, he's Moony, and I think that's really cute. I'm ridiculous, I know. Long story short, this is how they become best friends, is Vanna kind of seeing that in him and seeing the cunningness and saying, you know what, you can use this. This is a skill and you're not worthless. You know what I mean? Sorry, I think Indy just whined in his sleep. In any case, they come to appreciate each other's strengths. He uses his skills to advise her and protect her from anyone conniving to take her throne, because he understands the ambitions and can predict the underhanded moves. And I'm thinking maybe he even thwarts an assassination attempt. And because we kind of already know the ending of this a little bit, they fall in love. Enemies to romance is my favorite. So yeah, it kind of sucks because I kind of like how their relationship starts, but I also know it kind of gets dark, and we all know that because we all watched the last video. Anyway, again, after the metal shortage, his cunningness turns sinister, and his fear leads him to manipulate his own mate, believing that he has to for the good of their eggs. I think just pressure gets to him. I think there's pressure from his father, pressure from the war, rumors of a coup, and I also added in healers telling him there might be something wrong with his bones and he might not have long to live. In any case, Selenite doesn't start out as the kind of guy who would use Vanna like that. I mean, she was basically his only friend and the only person who ever really saw him, but he's desperate and he kind of loses it. And I can imagine he's sickened when he visits the war front over in the Scorchwing Desert, but at the same time, he doesn't know what to do. And in his story, I think there is a point where he realizes that he's turned himself into a villain. And is there any going back after that? And that's actually kind of where my ideas about his story come to an end, and I'm definitely open to ideas. Like, should he get a redemption arc? Or what do you do once you realize what you've done? That you've like started a war, basically. So I don't know. It just kind of seems like a horrible situation, which as a writer makes me happy. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this art. I really wanted to make him like a weird looking color for a Gyrewing to kind of go with his, I don't know, villainousness. He's just like a strange looking dragon to a Gyrewing. You know, most Gyrewings are like these warm, fiery colors, but Selenite is like this interesting gray, but his feathers are this like opalescent, iridescent, like white color. So just like you need to look closer at him to see his beauty, if that makes sense. But yeah, this is the final result of his painting. And yes, I struggled for like 50 minutes trying to get his face right. And that just tells me that I need more practice doing angles that aren't side profiles. There's his close up. I used a gradient map effect on my pencil to get kind of some opalescent colors really easily. You can use other methods, but that one's just really easy. And then here is Selenite and Vanadinite next to each other because, you know, mates together. I'm not sure if it translates because their poses are quite different, but my intention is that they're around the same size, but Vana is like more solidly built and more muscular because she's like the brawn and he's the brains. And then here is Selenite next to a generic Gyrewing. It's like, I guess he might be I know Vana is slightly larger than a generic Gyrewing and he's like around her size, so that's what I was thinking. I mean, he's the son of a famous warrior, so I figured genetics and all that. It kind of makes me want to draw his dad, but I know I have to work on the final battle piece, so that's what I will do. Oh yeah, and their kids. I want to draw their children. In any case, if you have ideas again for a potential redemption arc for Selenite, or just any ideas about this series in general, please let me know. Guys, we're coming towards the end of this series, and it's kind of crazy. So if you've enjoyed this series, let me know what other things do you want to see? More different types of dragons, characters, stories. I mean, I'm probably gonna make more dragons and stories because that's what I like to do. But I also love talking to you guys about stuff, so hence you get a say. Wow, this is a bit of a long outro, so I'm just gonna say thank you very much for watching this video. Don't let anyone manipulate you, and yeah, I'll see you around.